Helena or Elena. And I'm so thrilled to introduce and have a chat with our next guest. But before I do so, let me ask you a question first. So get ready, hands ready. It might seem a bit strange, okay, as a question, moreover, so early in the morning, but bear with me, okay? First, imagine that you are driving on a busy city, central city road, like the capital of Spain, or whatever, or London, or Paris, and you're approaching a zebra crossing, where there's already people crossing the zebra crossing. When you're about to brake, you realize your brakes don't work. So you have to take a quick decision to avoid hitting the people on the zebra crossing. So you have two options. One, you move your wheel to one side, killing one person, or you move your wheel to the other side, killing 4 people. What would you do? Would you kill 1 person or 4? The latter or the former? Could you raise your hands and see, would you kill one? Who will kill 1 person? Just 1. Just 1? Most of you? Obviously, it's a no-brainer. It's better to kill 1 than 4 people. But what if I told you that that person, if a 5-year-old boy or girl, and the other 4 people could be elderly, a group of elderly people, like 80 and over? Would you still raise your hand? Or moreover, what if I told you that that 5-year-old could be a family member, your nephew or niece, your cousin, or your son or daughter? Would you still raise your hand? Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to do that. It's a tough one, yeah? Yeah, they're saying, oof, oof, it's a tough one. We'll never know your decision. But most of you have recognized I'm talking about the trolley problem. It's an ethical dilemma raised in 1967 by an English philosopher. She was Philippa Foot, and it was dubbed the trolley problem by an American philosopher, Judith Jarvis Thomson, in 1976. It consisted of a series of experiments on ethics and psychology involving these ethical dilemmas on whether to sacrifice 1 person to save a larger group. Check it on the internet. There's a lot of interesting examples and techniques, and you can even try and take decisions live. Ethic dilemmas regarding technologies are not new. And trolley-style scenarios like this one arise also in discussing, for example, the ethics on our autonomous vehicles and the design, which may consider which of the programming has to be taken into account, whether to kill or to strike something or something else in order for the better good when a collision appears unavoidable. Okay, companies are here to use artificial intelligence and big data to improve as companies, but also to make the world a better place for all of us. But how can they assure that that's the way it works? Well, to give us some light and answer some questions in this regard, we have with us the Chief Responsible AI Officer at Telefónica, Richard Benjamins. Richard, give a round of applause for him, please. Richard, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Actually, Richard sent me a link with the trolley problem where you can actually, and I did it, answer the questions. You have to choose from one or the other scenario. I was wondering when I was researching about you, Richard, that you are obviously the protagonist in all of the dinner parties at the time, now, at this moment, because of the AI, Sam Altman here, ChatGPT, and all that. You probably are very popular in dinner parties. Everybody's asking you the same questions. But let's dive into why Telefónica is so interested in AI and what are the projects and opportunities the company is seeing in this sector.
Okay, thank you very much. By the way, the trolley problem, if you want to do it yourself, it's called the Moral Machine. .com. It's at MIT. Millions of people have done this test, so there is a kind of cultural overview of what culture values what more from a moral and ethical perspective. Telefonica, of course, artificial intelligence is a transformational technology. It's a transversal technology. You can apply it everywhere. Not something like blockchain is more related to finance or data. IoT is more related to industry. This is really everywhere. And that's why it's so important for companies and for any organization. We use it obviously to improve our business processes. Yeah? So everything about our customers, about marketing, about our deploying or operating our networks, interaction with our customers, you name it, everything that is digital and that has a digital process behind it generates data, and then you can optimize it using artificial intelligence. But we're not only optimizing our business or improving our customer relation, we also use the data we have in an anonymized and aggregated manner to help others, to help other companies. Like we work a lot with logistics, with transport, because in our network we see a lot of mobility patterns or activity in the antennas, all aggregated, which gives you a hint of what might be going on in humanity. And we use that, as I said, for many different sectors.
Okay, it's mainly to improve the business. The technology is there, we have to use it, but if we start from the beginning, from wide to narrow, I think I know the answer, but I have to ask you, is responsible and ethical AI possible? Let's start from there, because we are human, let's face it. Probably the answer is not about AI, but about us as people. So is it possible as a premise?
Well, let's say the responsible use of AI, the responsible use of technology in general, of course, is something that you need to want to do. Yeah? If you don't want to do, you can use any technology for very unethical things. Yeah? Is it possible? Of course it is possible, but it's a mindset. Yeah? If you want it, and more companies want it through their ESG frameworks, they not only want to make a profit, they also want to be responsible with their society they work on, with the climate, and of course with their customers. If you want to be responsible with AI, what you always have to do is, if I deploy this system for a certain use, if it goes wrong, what is the damage that I create? Yeah? Now, if you have that mindset, it's not about how much revenue can I make, but also, if I'm not right, what goes wrong? Take an example. If you are in the medical sector and you do diagnosis using AI, so you scan X-rays and you say, okay, this person might have a serious disease, then of course you can improve that process very much, but those algorithms, they learn from a lot of data. They're never perfect, so they make mistakes. Sometimes they make false positives, so you think somebody has a serious disease, but he hasn't, so you put him into a process very painful and very expensive. Or you have a false negative, which means you think a person is healthy, but actually the person has a serious disease. So what you have to do, if you put this in place, apart from the opportunities, to think, if something goes wrong, how seriously is that damage on people? If you do that systematically, at least what you do, you make a balanced decision on, okay, there is a big uptake in terms of saving people's lives, and we can be more efficient in the hospital, even saving money, but on the other hand, there is some damage. And then you should try to minimize the damage as much as possible. Yeah? So that's the ethical use and the responsible use, that you put a lot of effort in this, avoiding these negative consequences.
Yeah, but you say in a way that it's not AI in itself, but the use we humans do of AI. Yeah. So in a way, and you also talk about the moral dilemma, or the trolley problem I was mentioning, that depending on the cultures where you move around the world, we are different humans. We value more, as we were mentioning, in Asia, they value more the elderly than the children, and in Europe, the other way around in that sense. How would that AI then be? Could it be standardized? Does it have to be through regulation? And would it be European regulation and then the American, and a standard universal regulation, so we're all on the same page?
Yeah, okay, so let's first say that, as you say, artificial intelligence as such is not good or bad. Yeah? It doesn't have an intention, even though many people might think we go to generative AI or even artificial general intelligence, and it has intentions, it has wishes, it wants to do things. it knows causal relations, it has common sense. That's not the case. Yeah? It's just big mathematical model that does amazing things.
The artificial general intelligence is what we understand the people in the street as the Terminator effect. Yes, the machine that has a...
It is if it equals human intelligence.
Yeah, but it could take decisions as a human and be bad or good.
Or good, yeah.
Okay, it's not here yet, and it won't be.
So I think that's the first thing, yeah? So it's people behind them. And the people, if they have some targets regarding business, and this business model incentivizes using this technology, let's say recommendations, very strong recommendations to obtain business results, there might be a collateral damage, as we've seen, yeah, with addiction to technology, kids that are not able to disconnect from TikTok or from Instagram, anorexia. Those are all side effects of massive use of this technology, but it's not the technology, it's the business model and the people and the organization behind that have to take those decisions. Now, it is true if you speak about ethical differences, because indeed, so let's say in the Asian cultures, especially in China, community is more important than individuals. Yeah, so it's better to save 5 million people's life if that costs you 100 people's lives. Okay, you can take that for granted. Yeah, in the Western world, it is more. Well, it's more about leaving nobody behind, making sure there's no damage. So it's a different perspective. So it's very hard to reach agreement on ethical dimensions, but it is possible to use the human rights, international human rights, which was signed by almost all countries in the world. And there's one organization in the world that is currently focusing on a global governance model of artificial intelligence, and that's UNESCO. Yeah? UNESCO has an AI recommendation which is signed by 193 countries in the world. It's a recommendation, so there is no sanction if you don't do it. Yeah, so we have UNESCO. It's almost 200 countries. Then you have the OECD. It's about 40 plus countries. European Commission is 27 countries. It's all better than national. Yeah. But if you don't have it global, then indeed you can have very strange situations.
I think the key word was that the regulation and the fines or the being responsible some way in an international level. Otherwise, companies, as you said, cultures change from one country to other, from one continent to the other. You know this well as because you're also founder of Telefónica's area of AI for Society and Environment, and co-founder and vice president of the Spanish Observatory for Ethical and Social Impacts of AI, called Odisea. In this sense, I know Telefónica is leading the auto-regulation in a way, as a company with such a big responsibility has decided, okay, we're going to auto-regulate ourselves and maybe others will copy us. Tell us a bit more about those AI principles that Telefónica has set upon itself and is following.
Okay, so we started in 2018 being very vocal in investing and investigating a lot in how can we AI across our company, which has resulted in what I said earlier. Mm-hmm. But at that time also there were some, let's say, news stories about the negative side effects like discrimination, bias, black box, opaque decisions. So we started, if we're vocal on the positive side, we also need to work on avoiding the negative side. So we came up with initially with 5 principles, which say the use of artificial intelligence that we have in the company should be fair. It means it should not discriminate, should not have unwanted bias. It should be explainable and transparent when needed. Because, as I said, it's not the same doing a medical diagnosis or recommending a movie. Yeah? So they have different impacts. If something goes wrong, they have different impacts on people's lives. So you have to adjust those requirements. Should be human-centric in the sense that it should not violate human rights. It should be compliant with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and it should have proper human oversight, depending on on this type of application. It should have privacy and security, and we want to apply it across our value chain. So not only when we do something ourselves, but also if we work with partners, if we work with startups, if we buy it from companies, and also if we sell technology to others. In the whole value chain, we want to make sure that those principles are there. And now more recently, we are refreshing the principles, and probably we will include what they call green AI as well. Yeah? So because large algorithms, big algorithms, especially generative AI, have a big carbon footprint. So, for instance, everything under ChatGPT is about 10 months of training and $12 million in electricity bills. So, and that's one training. Yeah? That's why ChatGPT now is until 2021, because if they retrain, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of things. So that's also important. Yeah. So we have the principles, and now from that moment we are starting to implement them in our daily life. So we have a governance model. We have new roles, like we have identified the need for a responsible AI champion. It's a person in any business, every business unit that is aware of ethics of AI, helps to comply with the process. We have a questionnaire where we ask the hard questions about the impact if something goes wrong, about the principles. So
does it already exist, this responsible AI champion in some companies, or you're implementing it as a...
Well, there are not a lot. Microsoft has them, and we have them.
There you go. There you go. Those for interested in AI and looking for a new horizon. You also make it possible by making this ethical AI or these principles you mentioned as a part of the business as usual, and responsible AI by design. You include it in the design already, so it comes along.
It's not an afterthought.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not, we did this, and
now how we, yeah, exactly.
It's like if you organize something like this with the panel, and suddenly you see old man on stage, you said, oops, we forgot about diversity. Yeah?
AI by design. And in that sense, and South Summit is the core of South Summit, obviously, are the startups, and then obviously the investors and all the VCs and stuff. But the startups is the core, the heart of why this huge event started in the first place, and still is. In this sense, obviously, Telefonica through Wayra, the innovation hub of Telefonica, obviously works with a lot of startups. How do you think this ethical aspect should be included in the due diligence process for investing in AI companies, or is it already included? Can we force it somehow in the due diligence? Do you do it already?
Well, it is definitely a trend. So I see more and more investors, or sometimes even venture capital funds, asking us and myself, hey, we are trying to invest, we want to invest in this company, but we've seen something about bias and discrimination. Are we exposed? Yeah? Because they don't want to invest in a company and then later it turns out a very controversial company, and so they don't want to do it. So I think that's happening, and it's a trend. In Wayra and Telefonica, I think since a short period, we have a statement of responsible investment, which is a United Nations statement, and we're working on including the ethical part as well. Yeah. So due diligence process, you have different stages or different depths. You have the first phase, then you have a more deeper phase, and with this is exactly the same. Yeah, you start with asking some questions, and in the later phase, you actually look at code, you look at data, and you estimate the potential risk. And it's always about, I mean, it's a great opportunity, it's a great purpose, but you always have to think, if it doesn't work out perfectly, so you have 90%, for instance, if it's AI, you have 90% performance, you have 10% error, so what's the impact of the 10% error? And you also have to think by design about dual use. So this is a great product for this, but you have to make an effort to think, well, if somebody takes this service and turns it into something very bad or undesired, it's not that you can prevent it with your terms and conditions, so you should, yeah, that's the first thing. But it's always worthwhile to think about it, because if you think about it and you see something, then you can try to mitigate it. Yeah? If you don't, you just launch it, and then suddenly you realize, hey, they are using this, what we built for a noble purpose, we see that it's now used for this, and definitely we're not in line with that. This is also very important if you open up code as open source. Yeah? So you need a responsible AI license.
So AI ethics evaluation is included already in the due diligence for Telefonica, because it's in the core of the principles you mentioned, which you are, in a way, the father of those principles, defending them to the death. But other startups already have they understood this, and they've integrated or included in their main DNA? Do you have examples of startups with a strong ethical component already within your portfolio?
Definitely there are even startups who build tools to check the ethics of the AI. So you have startups that work on explainability. So you have a deep learning model that is opaque, and they offer a server so you can break it open and understand why it takes certain decisions. Yeah? There are startups who look at bias and discrimination. So this is a whole new set of startups, and there's even Mozilla, from Firefox. They have created a new Mozilla Ventures, and it's a fund that only invests in such companies that build on responsible AI. Now, then you have these startups that solve a problem, yeah? So like Telefonica, we have a few startups, of course, Eindhoven, yeah?
Eindhoven,
is in
the
health.
one for the heart.
Cardiology. Yeah. This is about health. I think we're going to look at that, because this is a very noble application. So again, you can diagnose diseases, and you can also do treatment, precision medicine. But as I said, this is AI based on a lot of data, so it's never perfect. So again, you have to look at the collateral damage that you create, even though you have a huge opportunity.
It's not easy. You also have VoiceMod, which is a startup that has a huge success. It was established a few years ago. It was I believe it was the first batch of startups at Wayra, first or second batch, and they recreate your voice. They can, there's been a huge hype with this song that came out a few weeks ago. It was The Weeknd, and it wasn't his voice. So in which sense is VoiceMod, taking into account this ethical? They have a tool that they can be you or yourself or mine, that you can use our voices. How are they implementing it? Do you know?
I don't know.
But they have to, otherwise.
They have to. Well, this is a great example of a technology that has a great use. Yeah? For instance, people who have a disability in speaking, or they lost their cords, vocal cords, they can only whisper. But there is technology that you can turn this whisper in their original voice in real time. Yeah? So somebody who has suffered a big operation, lost voice, but then is able, using this technology, to recreate his voice and have normal conversation. Now, that alone is already a perfect, fantastic application. But then the same technology, I mean, we all heard about deep fakes in videos, yeah? Imagine you receive a WhatsApp from your children or from your parents. Yeah. Look, we have a big problem, this and this and that. And just before that, you received a wrong call. Oh, sorry, I called you now. Who I'm talking to? And then they say something. They capture 10 seconds of your voice. They put it in this machine, and they send you a fake message that they are in need and they need money. Yeah? So this is the dual use. Yeah? So you have to think. Before launching, you have to think about potential consequences that you have. Of course, you still decide to launch it, but if your mindset is, how can we make this happen less? I think that's very important in the responsible thinking of that, by design.
By design, because for the moment there's no regulation that imposes strict fines or for the companies. It doesn't exist, although I believe there's talks about an international agency on AI, but so far...
The only regulation that's upcoming is the European one, which will be in force. I think it will still be 3 years before you can be fined. Of course, it will be approved earlier. And in China, there are some regulations. For instance, in China, TikTok has to enable customers to switch off the recommendation, which in the West, in Europe and in the US, is not possible. You can only use TikTok if you get this tunnel vision, always getting the same things. Yeah, that's a regulation. Now, I don't know how that regulation is enforced. But it's a good thing. It's not even included in our regulation explicitly. Implicitly, it is.
For the time being, then we have 52 seconds. Telefónica's auto-regulation itself as an example, because it's a responsible company, a big, huge company, and maybe others will copy. But just to finish, Richard, Sam Altman from OpenAI has been here. We've been talking about ChatGPT a lot. Is this a real, they're asking it should be regulated. How ethical is that, and what do you think about, is there a hidden agenda? Is there more of a commercial interest in this specific case? Can Give me some controversy there to finish.
If you think about OpenAI, it's actually a specific company with no copy. It is controversial, but Sam Altman has asked for regulation in the US. He has also said that if I can't comply with the future European regulation, I will move out of Europe. No? But I think it's important to know that OpenAI was first a not-for-profit. It broke, it went broke, and then it turned into a profit. But it's a capped profit. It means that they cannot, like Apple or Google, all the profits go to the shareholders. No, if an amount above a certain amount of profit, it's invested in the case of the company, in the mission of the company. Now, that is a very different thing that we see from any other company in the world. I also learned, I don't know whether that's true, that Sam Altman has no shares whatsoever.
But he has something. It's not shares as such, but I mean, come on. I mean, nobody's listening, but that's my personal opinion. He's making money on the other side. I mean, he's...
of course, he's making money, but it's...
on the record, he hasn't got it.
But it's like separating concerns, yeah? So, like big companies do, if they share, if they separate auditing from their business. Yeah.
Time will tell. In the meantime, just follow Telefónica's principles on AI, because so far, so good. Thank you so much, Richard Benjamins. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.